There's Bitcoin implementations in Go, of course. There's all of these things. So like as we start going and getting much more cross chain, and DApp developers are building things and potentially building stuff in multiple chains and this sort of thing, being able to have a common language there is going to be nice for them. That's also one of the advantages that we have in our ability to deliver some of this stuff is like there's already a Go library for a lot of like the crypto primitives, these sort of things that are being added. We're just like, oh, import library from, because it already exists, right? So it makes it nice. It means we have to focus on the Cardano side and really what Cardano does, and not like, hey, we got to get deep into implementing this crypto library, for like the SecP 256K1 or whatever. Like, we don't want to have to implement that. Oh, hey, there's a Go library for it already. We'll be able to implement that sort of stuff easily because we just need to wrap it in the Cardano specific language.
This is another Catalyst proposal video that I didn't quite get out in time, but fingers crossed it does get through. And this is Chris joining me from Blink Labs talking about gOuroboros, a Golang version of the Ouroboros protocol that runs a Cardano blockchain. And he's putting together all of this code and development so that people that are really used to developing in Go can actually use it and come into the Cardano blockchain and start contributing that way. So really cool implementation. And let me just pull up some stats here. He does mention this in the interview, and here we can see on GitHub some of the most popular languages by pull requests. So this is the interactivity with the actual programming language itself, Python being number one, Java, and then Go here. And you can see the growth of Go year on year, 10% growth there. So a lot of people are contributing to that programming language. You can see on the chart here, it's growing in popularity. Python is probably the most popular language out there. It's such an easy language to learn and can do so much. It's quite powerful. But you can see Go, and then if you compare it to Rust, which is another networking language, and then we have under here Haskell, which powers a lot of Cardano. So not a hugely popular language, but you can see the comparisons all there. But having all this stuff in Go is going to be really powerful for anyone entering the ecosystem. But Chris explains all this in the upcoming interview. So make sure you check out their website as well. Support the project, support what they're doing. If you're a Go developer and you want to contribute to Cardano, this is probably the best place to go about it. You can check out their GitHub repo and find out a little bit more about what they're doing. But let's get into this interview. But Chris here is the expert. So Chris, please explain your proposal and what you guys are trying to build.
Sure, absolutely. We actually got the client side of the Ouroboros library written in Golang as Fund 9. So we're completing that and writing the server side of it, which gives us a full library that speaks gOuroboros, both sides of it. So it's the building block for building everything else. As far as, the path towards a Go Cardano node, maybe not a full node, but, like partial nodes, which we'll see more of, I think, in the future, is nodes that serve specific purposes. So this is an easy building block for that. And written in Go. And like I said, this is or Golang. And our proposal is to, complete that process. And we actually have a second proposal also, which builds off of the other Fund 9 stuff. So we're building blocks that over time are going to work towards a Go node, full node implementation. We're not planning on doing that currently, but that's the direction. There's a lot of pieces necessary. There's the the Ouroboros network, which is what gOuroboros is. There's the ledger and like how all of the processing happens and that sort of thing, so that's another step. We're, making progress towards it. The main part of the server side of the Ouroboros network protocol is the ability to respond basically to all of the Ouroboros messages. So before, we're able to talk to a node and query it, ask it questions using, the code we've already done for gOuroboros. This code is now to be able to build services that can respond on their own without having a Cardano node backing it. So something that's similar to it is Dolos. And, so like we're working in those directions towards very similar goals as the TX Pipe team. In fact, on our Cardano Node API proposal, we're actually partnering with the TX Pipe team in that we're both implementing a similar API. Like, in fact, the exact same API. They're writing it in Rust, we're writing it in Go. We're cooperating, and the idea is to bring on more languages. Because, as we said, it's the ecosystem diversity now that we're really going for, trying to build out all of these various languages so that you can build implementations of whatever you want, right? So it's not necessarily that we have a specific target because we're building such low-level infrastructure. So once we've gotten these kind of things written, right, like people can take them and build, whatever they want, liquidation bots by Liquid or whatever, instead of having to be written in Haskell, right? Someone could write them in Go, someone could write them in Rust, right? Like someone can write them in TypeScript. We're getting to the point where like these things are going to be possible in the ecosystem. And, like we have been writing the Go stuff. So that's kind of, our goal is to continue doing that. And it's all open source, of course. We want people to build on top of it. We want people to build products over it, and things like that. And that's where we feel our advantage with Go kind of comes in, is the Go developer pool is very large and growing. It's the third most used language on GitHub. It's growing at like, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head because unfortunately I'm on my phone, but it's over 10%, year over year, in new developers coming in, according to like GitHub stats.
So it's really interesting that we will have all these different other languages come into play and give developers a lot more options. And I do know that these other languages have such huge communities behind them, and more developers learning and building on top of them. What's one of the advantages of using Go as opposed to like Rust?
Right. So one of the things that Go's written for is it was specifically written by Google for creating network services. So this was a language that they wrote for people to write internally for building Google, right?
Right. Okay. That's useful.
So it's really built for concurrency and for network performance, and those are what it specializes at. So things like, serving data over the network is really its specialty. So it is extremely easy to write a lot of these things. And where the difficulty comes in a lot of cases for us is writing to be compatible with the Haskell stuff, especially because in a lot of cases, there's specifications for how things should work, like how the ledger should work, right? Like there's specific rules for it, and those things make sense. But in a lot of cases, like internal communications, like what an error looks like how it looks like in Haskell and those types of things aren't necessarily documented. And so these are the kind of problems that we've had to kind of face, is bringing some of the stuff that's not documented into Go and the documented stuff at the same time. It's been humorous because Santiago from TX Pipe, you can hear him kind of say some of the same stuff in having built all the Rust things out. And as we go, it becomes easier for everyone, right? Because everyone is able to learn from each other. And it's nice that we're building, such like a cooperative system. And developers tend to be kind of, in a lot of cases, tribal with their languages. And that's kind of us too, in that we decided to write stuff in Go because we like writing in Go, and that's what we've been doing. So we wanted to make sure that people could write in, like their preferred language. And that's really it, is if people can come to the ecosystem and they're like, oh, well, I'm a Go developer, or I'm a Rust developer, or I'm a, insert language here developer, and there's an ecosystem of code around that they can start building from and building their own things, they're going to stick around, right? If you have to tell them, oh, by the way, you need to learn this brand new language, you need to learn new paradigms, you need to learn all of these things to be able to start to contribute. I mean, there's definitely places where it's like, yes, absolutely, we should, at this point in time, we absolutely need Haskell people to do specific tasks, to do specific things, and to do those sort of things. But not everyone needs or wants to do those, right?
Yeah, I went down that path of starting to learn Haskell, and I just don't have the time.
Right.
I started off in the Java space, and now ended up in PHP, and barely even code anymore. And I just do not have the time to pick up another language. And if it was something that I was more comfortable with and I could, then yeah, maybe I would contribute a little bit more in those respects. But yeah, I just don't have the time for it. So I love that it's opening up more opportunities for people to come into Cardano and contribute
Absolutely.
at that code level and do what they're good and best at. So that's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
How much funding are you guys asking for this one? And how long's the delivery timeline for this one?
Yeah, so 185,000 ADA, because we're doing
Yep.
ADA, right? Yeah, so 185,000 ADA, and that's for covering our engineers and for project management, like overhead, stuff like that to building it. We expect we'll do it in 4 months, maybe slightly longer, but our plan is for 4 months. We're pretty good at targeting these things as far as what we need to do. We know exactly what we need to implement. We've already created a project board, laid out literally every single step that we need to complete, and put them into the milestones and all that sort of stuff. So we're have high confidence that we can make it in about 4 months.
That's pretty good. It's always nice to be able to plan that all out and have it all scheduled in. You can visually see your goals as you tick them off. It's always a nice thing. So that works out roughly just under $50,000 for the proposal. So I think that's a bargain, really, for having an extra language option for developers to start working on that node level. So it's absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. I mean, and again, developers can use a lot of the stuff now, and we're building on a lot of the client side. Some of the, we've even been talking with various people here. Of course, we're at Rare Bloom today. So we were talking with Maestro, who is one of our partners that we've built stuff with. And, we use their stuff for prototyping and all of this stuff. So we're good at working together on all of these. And we were talking to them about this proposal and, and they're like, oh, we can do X and Y and Z, right? Already they're popping with these ideas of what they can do. And they're like, well, how could we, provide this that we want to provide? How can we use that for that? And, all of these things. So it's definitely nice to see, people already being able to figure out where they can use these things. And we definitely hope to grow the Go ecosystem. One thing that isn't really talked about a lot is, everyone talks about multi-chain. All right. So when you go and you look at Ethereum, there's GETH or GETH, which is their main their main client, right? The main one in use is written in Go. Avalanche's reference client node is written in Go. There's Bitcoin implementations in Go, of course. There's all of these things. So as we start going and getting much more cross chain, and DApp developers are building things and potentially building stuff in multiple chains and this sort of thing, being able to have a common language there is going to be nice for them. And anyone that's already worked with these other chains are going to be able to do stuff in Go. And that's also one of the advantages that we have in our ability to deliver some of this stuff is there's already a Go library for a lot of the crypto primitives, these sort of things that are being added. We're just import library from, because it already exists, right? So it makes it nice. It means we only we have to focus on the Cardano side and really what Cardano does, and not hey, we got to get deep into implementing this crypto library for the SecP 256K1 or whatever. We don't want to have to implement that. Oh, hey, there's a Go library for it already. We'll be able to implement that sort of stuff easily because we just need to wrap it in the Cardano specific language, right?
Chris, you should have started with this. That's huge. Interoperability is one of my big things with crypto, and opening up Cardano to all these other ecosystems and being able to build on the code level and just pull in other existing libraries that have already exist and other people have already worked on is huge. It's why rewrite everything when you can just pick it up and use someone else's code that's been used for quite a while already.
Exactly. And the question of why bring Go to Cardano also when it comes to blockchain in general, we can just point to all of these other things as proof of Go's good enough, right? For doing a lot of these a lot of the work. And what really matters is how much proving that we do on like the protocols itself, right? If the protocol is sound and we implement, the protocol to spec, and the spec is written good, and, and we're able to test all of these things, we're going to produce the same output. So, obviously the node diversity, and especially as we start going up and having more, not necessarily nodes, but like node capable things in various languages, we can prove stuff by, does everybody get the same answer? Like, oh, the Haskell node says this. What does the TypeScript node say? What does the Rust node say? What does the Go node say? Right? Like, if all the people say the same thing, we have even higher confidence, even in the formal proofing and things like that can be done on Haskell. Right? It's like, look, we get the same answer everywhere, right? If everybody gets the same answer, it's probably correct,
Yeah. Chris, this is an absolutely brilliant proposal. I really hope people do support this one. I love everything that, you developers are doing in the ecosystem, and, you all need the support. So I'll put the links, references, and everything in the show notes so everyone can find out a little bit more about it. Any final words before we sign off?
Man, no, just, support your SPOs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, that's for sure. All
Absolutely.
right. Awesome, Chris. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.